Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Dorset Local Access Forum. Before we start this morning, I'll just go round the room, both personally and virtually, and make an introduction. So if I start from this end.
My name's Sarah Warren and I'm a land use advisor for the Forestry Commission.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rob Greenhalgh. I'm the Woodland Officer based in East Dorset with the Forestry Commission as well.
I'm Rowley Boughton and I am the Woodland Officer for West Dorset and East Devon.
I'm Paul Collins and I'm a user representative on the forum. And I have Mirella sitting here who is transcribing our proceedings onto this screen Saturday.
Graham Stanley, Senior Ranger for the Dorset Council, North Dorset area. General Runner for the DLAF at the moment, at least.
I'm Janet Davis. I'm the Vice Chair of the DLAF and I'm on the LAF representing the interests of walkers.
Hello, I'm Philip Hackett. I'm the Chairman of the LAF and I'm also the Southwest Access Field Officer for the British Horse Society, so representing views of the equestrian community.
Fiona Bowles, I'm a volunteer access with the British Horse Society and I'm also sit on the local nature partnership for Dorset, so link to that.
Hi, I'm Dave Ackley, Senior Ranger with Dorset Council, covering the central area of Dorset, including Weymouth and Portland.
I'm Chris Slade. I used to be the definitive map officer for Dorset County Council, but now I'm a ROIP. No, not a ROIP, ROLO, Rights Liaison Officer for the Medjugorje Parish Council. Do lots of walking, and I've walked every parish in Dorset, and I've been writing them up for the local magazines.
So we go on to online if you want to just speak in any particular order. Go for Nikki first.
Hi, I'm Nikki Harper. Interested in access and accessibility and also conservation. And for the interest of those people who do forestry, I also am rather keen on black poplars, but that's just an aside. And so I used to work for Natural England and that's how I know Sarah. And obviously a member of the Dorset LAF.
Philip, you're also large on the screen.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Philip Elias, otherwise known as Pip, and I'm the Senior Rights of Way Officer for BCP Council.
Mandy, you're next to come up.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Mandy Willis, member of the LAF. My interest is really very much recreational, walking and cycling, really much across Dorset.
Conveniently, Vanessa, you come up next.
Hello, I'm Vanessa Penny and I'm the Definitive Map Team Manager for Dorset Council.
Darren?
Oh, that's the IT.
Oh, hello, Darren from IT. Phoebe at the top, you're administrating for us this morning. Hello.
Hi. Hello, yes, I'm just taking the minutes for this meeting.
Thank you. Who have we got? JW? Jan Waddell. And the public.
I'm Jan Wardell. I'm attending as observer this morning. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm the Dorset Area Footpath Secretary for the Ramblers and an ex-member of LAF. Thank you.
Right. Russell?
Hello there. Yeah, Russell Goff, Green Space Manager for Dorset Council. apologies. I'm not going to be able to use my camera today because when I do, I lose being able to hear or speak anyone because I don't think I've got a very good connection today. So apologies. I am here, but I'm going to leave the camera off because it seems to be interrupting my connection.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Have we successfully been around the table and the screen? I think we have. Right. Okay. Straight on to the minutes. I'm going to give a chance for a public question first, actually, before we go to the minutes. Do we have any public questions here this morning? No, we don't. No public speakers. Right, we take the declarations of interest as read, but if you do have an interest to declare later on in the meeting, please do so at the relevant item. The minutes of the last meeting have been circulated. And has anybody got any comments they would like to make on the minutes very briefly?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did. I think on page 2, just close to the top, the bit about the rights of way improvement plan, it doesn't quite make sense because it says, first bullet point, the DLAF believed a draft will be ready after the May local elections. And then the second comment is, I'll give a definitive update on the ROIC timetable, and those two things don't seem quite compatible. So I think really the first line could probably be taken out, and it was really the comment from, this is I think probably Russell simply saying that he couldn't give a definitive update on the ROIC timetable.
On the agenda today?
We have got the ROIC on the agenda today. Okay. So I will move that we accept the minutes.
Sorry, are we not going through it?
Go through the actions, yes. I'll just do the minutes first. Right. The proposal from the chair looking for a seconder for the minutes. Thank you, Fiona. All those in favour of adopting the minutes? Thank you, that's unanimous. Right, we'll now go down the actions from the minutes. JD raised issues with DLAF email addresses that no longer work. Graham, I think you've been through this.
Yeah, I have certainly tried to get hold of Phil Poulton, and I've tried again this morning through another Somerset Council colleague. So hopefully we'll be able to out that one, but haven't been able to get in touch just yet. As far as Dawn Raymond goes, I don't know whether our FE colleagues can actually help, because this is a lady that has been on the as a member of the Dorset staff for a while, and is a colleague of yours, Dawn Raymond. I've never.
No, what's her role? And is this FE?
It might be FE.
FE. Okay.
The other are.
Forestry England, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't personally, it doesn't ring a bell, but
no, is she attached to the Wareham team? Is it, or is it?
I don't know.
You don't know? We'll try and find out for her.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we could contact her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Red Dawn.
Dawn Raymond.
Dawn Raymond, yes.
FE.
Yeah.
Maybe it must be Wareham, but I don't reckon.
Well, while we're on the email addresses, can everybody make sure that they've got the right address for Mandy? Because the group emailing that's been going out in association with this meeting, and probably before, has got the wrong email address for Mandy. So poor Mandy, who's on the screen now, has missed out on quite a few things recently. I think she's got everything now, but we do need to make absolutely sure that the group, because what happens is the group email goes out and then everybody uses that as to further their messages, and so the mistake is getting perpetrated forever. So please make sure it's in a recent email from me Mandy's correct address. Thank you.
I think the admin side changed it because the correct email address came up yesterday on the communication centre. So I don't know if Phoebe's changed the database.
I will ensure that happens.
Okay. Members that have been perpetually absent, I think we ought to contact just to see if they wish to continue with the LAF and maybe look to recruit if they didn't wish to go forward. You know, others may be more keen. Right, that was the only there we go, 3.1. Graham to check if the bridge raised by Nikki is DDA compliant. The bridge mentioned had steps and is narrow.
Slipped up a list, I'm sorry to say. But we'll double check it again.
Okay.
The details in there of which bridge and where.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll contact Nikki about that, yeah.
Okay. Just going down actions 4.1. PE to pass on Catherine Church's contact details to arrange a presentation for future DLAP meeting on the Star Valley project. And again, PIP update the DLAF on Avon Valley path progress. Third one, contact Graham and RQ regarding promotion of Dorset Explorer via leaflets.
Or Rob Quincy.
Rob
Yeah.
Quincy.
Yeah, so he was the chap from GIS department. Motion of Dorset Explorer via leaflets. We've when we were chatting with Rob, we were talking about getting it more widely known, I suppose. Whether it's just Dorset Explorer as a publicly accessible GIS mapping package, but also how to report problems, getting that more widely known. I'll follow that up with them.
Over the page, we have actions for 5.1, 5.2, 5.1. Vanessa Penny to email CSC with update on Thorncombe cases. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Vanessa.
Yes, I did that the following day.
Right. And 5.2 update if footpath 74 will now be a bridleway.
I'm assuming that's the Portland Railway cutting footpath that we were discussing.
That is now a bridleway.
Which the order is being made and it will be advertised on the 1st of August, and the order is for a bridleway, and the representation period will close on the 13th of September.
Thank you very much. That's all very positive. Thank you. Action.
Yes, I circulated the response from the Minister for Nature after the last meeting and sent everybody the link. I had natural England's cat. I'm sure I did it, but I'm not sure that I've got anything more to report on that.
7.1, which original DLAF comments on BCP local plan and take a lead in drafting further DLAF responses. That's been done.
Did that.
It's been done. Checking off 8. Going to draft queries on local nature recovery strategies. Bridget Betts.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Done that one.
and invite Linda Nunn to a future DLAF meeting.
Linda Nunn being the head of the Point Chase National Landscape.
Right. Okay, and finally, actions under 9.1. Arrange SANGS to be a future agenda item for November meeting. Well, that's upcoming. 9.2, follow up with the Forestry Commission contact management to July meeting. Welcome, you're here today. And finally, 9.3, going to circulate document on ELMS payments available.
It's a while back, wasn't it? I'll check and send it out if not.
Okay, they are in the public domain now.
Yeah, quite.
So, right. Okay. We dealt with item 3. So, moving on to item 4, it's a presentation by Rob, team, Dorset Officer, Forestry Commission. So, the floor is yours, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you.
You want to put it up on the screen? Can you make it so that it's...
Yeah, there we go. Do you want to click on with the mouse or the forward button on the different?
Is it going to work on our computer?
No, it's only kind of showing from this one. Well, the battery should last half an hour.
There you go. Thanks, Graham. Nice job.
So hello everyone. We've all been introduced, so I won't say any more about us as individuals now. I'll just introduce the Forestry Commission generally. So the Forestry Commission is broken into 3 different sort of sections, if you like. So we're from Forest Services, and Forest Services manages the regulatory functions. So this would be things like felling licenses and grants. Then there's Forestry England, and they manage the national forests, so things like Wareham Forest and New Forest. Then there's Forest Research, who, as their name suggests, do the research. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the grants for woodland creation, and then Rowley's got a case study. And then a little bit later, Rob's going to talk about grants available in existing woodland. So for woodland creation, we've got 2 main grants. There's the Woodland Creation Planning Grant. Then there's the England Woodland Creation Offer, also known as UCO. I'm not going to say much about the planning grant. It's basically, as its name suggests, for planning new woodland. And it's only for woodlands 5 hectares and above. And the objective is to give some money to farmers or landowners who want to plant sizable areas of woodland so that they can get some help, professional help in the woodland design. Because all of the woodlands have to be UK forestry standard and afforestation environmental impact assessment compliant. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. The next one, UCO, is a grant to implement new woodland projects. So basically this is when you want to actually plant the trees and do that kind of stuff. The minimum area is 1 hectare, but this doesn't have to be in one block. It can be in several smaller blocks, and the minimum block size is 0.1 of a hectare and 20 metres width. You can't plant using this grant on land that's already classed as woodland. So if you've got an area that's been felled, then you can't use this grant to restock that area. And you also can't use this grant for planting as part of a legal obligation. So, for example, if you've had building erected, the planners have said you've got to do some screening, you can't use this grant for doing that. There's basically 4 streams to it. The first one is that we'll give you up to £10,200 a hectare for the standard costs of the capital works that you need to put the new woodland in. So this would be things like fencing, the trees themselves, tree shelters, all of those kind of things. Then there's annual maintenance payments of £400 a hectare for 15 years. And our expectation is that you'll replace dead trees, that you'll make sure that they're weeded in the first few years, that tree shelters are upright, fences intact, and so on. So at the end of the 15-year period, we've got a really nice, young, well-established woodland there. More recently, we've brought in low sensitivity land payments. So these are only available in eligible areas, and it's £1,100 a hectare one-off payment. The eligible areas are basically areas that are outside of protected landscapes, protected sites, scheduled monuments, good quality agricultural land. So basically what we're saying is we want to encourage people to plant on land where there are fewer constraints, where tree planting is less likely to affect other, perhaps more important things. Fourth strand is what we call additional contributions. So these are payments for delivering public goods. You can see there's quite a number of the ones there. I'm not really going to talk very much about the top ones, just about the bottom two. So all of these payments are available in mapped areas, the same as the low sensitivity payments. And they also have a specification associated with them. So our expectation is, in order to receive these payments, that you do the specification and that you're in the mapped area. So you can see that we've got one that we call close to villages and towns. So you can get £600 a hectare one-off payment for this. And then there's recreational access, which you can get £3,700 a hectare one-off payment. So this map here just gives you an example of where some of the areas where you'd be eligible for this payment in Dorset. And you can see that it's mostly round sizable settlements. So the specifications basically relate to making sure that you're doing what we want you to do in order to receive these payments. So first of all, it has to be in what we call the social mapping layer. And you can find this on a tool called Land Information Search, which Rob is going to talk about a bit in a minute. You may get special dispensation to have the access payments outside of these areas if you can present a compelling case to your local woodland officer. They've got the ability to actually look at things and say, yeah, we think that's a really good case. But if you do this, you need to talk to them first, and then you need to complete a special form and submit that with your application. A lot of the specifications relate particularly to the species and the density of planting that you're expected to do. With the access payments, generally we're expecting them to be UK forestry standard compliant. So this means that you can have broadleaves and or conifers, up to 30% woody shrubs, and no more than 50% of one species. But if you are stacking some of the other additional contributions, which you can do, then you need to follow the specifications that are associated with those. It's quite complicated, and I don't want to explain it all here, really. So with the access, what we're expecting is that you allow permissive access on foot to land with no current access. So if you've already got public access on the land, we will not pay any more because essentially you're already doing what we want you to do. The access has to be agreed for permissive access 30 years, 365 days a year during daylight hours. And we expect you to create a path network which links into existing public rights of way or roads so that people can actually get to the site and walk round it. Even though there are paths in your little bit, you also have to allow people to walk freely over it. You can't say you've got to stick to the path. If they stray off it, you can't, basically kick them off. In your application, you need to include access maps that indicate where the paths are, the entry and access exit points, etc. You also need to have a plan to advertise it. So this could be through physical or online maps, waymarkers, signage. You can have a plan to promote it, perhaps to local community events, opening ceremonies, all of these kind of things. It's best to talk to your woodland officers to see what they're happy with. There are also potentially payments for the actual costs of infrastructure work that you need to do to make it a nice access. But the thing about these are that they will be capped at 10% of the total capital cost of your proposal. What we don't want is to have a tiny piece of woodland receiving thousands and thousands of pounds of money because it's not really necessarily going to give us the benefit that we would hope from our money. You have to follow the construction design and management regulations for forest roads and tracks. On the UCO grant manual, which is online, it shows a list of items that we will support. So this could be things like allability, gates, waymarkers, benches, footbridges, etc. But basically, if you want to do other things, talk to your woodland officers and they can see, they may approve it or not, depending on whether they think it's good value. And everything must meet the outdoor accessibility guidance. So now I'm going to pass over to Rowley, who's going to talk through a case study.
Right. Hello, everyone. So I just got to share with you, you can actually have a visual. I think sometimes it's easier to actually see how this works in real life. So this case is in my patch. The agent came to me wanting to create around just under 6 hectares of woodland, broadleaf woodland. The owner's sort of wishes were they wanted to give something back to the community. They want to infill an area of existing woodland, so sort of get some connectivity. They also run a holiday park and have visitors throughout the year. They'd like them to be able to use this woodland and also invite the local community in, or had to have access throughout the woodland as well, which fits in perfectly with the access options that Sarah has just sort of ran through. So from that, I'll probably show you first the actual access map, which is there. So that's the site. So you can quite see, obviously, the stuff in green is obviously the total area that we're going to be planting. The light blue is a existing public rights of way. And then the dark blue is the new paths and rides. Now, the site actually will be open throughout the whole of its entirety, and obviously for the 365 days a year, obviously between daylight hours. But the practicalities, we still need to have rides. Open space in woodlands is really important. And again, to guide people, to keep people in the right place, maybe, which will come with the next slide, actually. I'll be able to show you an example of maybe where we don't necessarily want to have people. It may be a wildlife area, it may be a bit boggy, it may not be a great place to walk. So by adding the blue pathways onto the existing public rights of way, allows them to go to these orange dots, which are all actually bird hides. And there's quite a considerable pond next to compartment 1 and compartment 2, which again will be sort of a more open area to allow people to maybe have some picnic benches there and people to be able to sort of take in the wildlife, which they're hoping to get more of. On this project, I work quite closely with Dorset Wildlife Trust because the site was sort of low grade, rough grazing, I suppose you call it. There are a lot of reed on it, so quite boggy, not a particularly great use to the landowner. So the decision was made that would be perfect to create some woodland in. But with DWT, and my feeling was that some of the areas we need some sort of greater amounts of open space on the site to ensure there's a nice tussocky grasslands there, some quite niche habitats. So it's quite keen to incorporate that into the design as well, as alongside obviously the public and so forth. So if you have a look on this next slide here, look a bit more crazy, quite cool colours, but I'll hopefully try and explain them all for you. So you see the actual ride system is a little bit more extensive, but the ones that we were going to be allowing people or guiding people to is obviously the dark blue ones. But you'll see the larger yellow areas are open space. Quite boggy there, it's quite reedy, so maybe that wasn't the best place to have people stomping across. Although they are more than happy for them to go there. So we're trying to keep it, to incorporate all these various things within that design. The light green around the rides is going to be shrubs. So we've got a grass ride for access, then it will be a shrub layer on either side, and then up obviously into canopy trees, which will allow a sort of eco-tone as you walk through the woodland. In compartment 4, which is the long sort of skinnier compartment there, it was decided that a ride wouldn't be suitable because it's simply so narrow. It wouldn't, it just wouldn't be entirely possible. As you can see, there's a very narrow bottleneck there. So that, although open access is available and it will have signage on the public rights of way at all access points, encouraging people to use the site, explaining a bit about the site, giving some information as well. Certain areas, like I say, just don't always work. But I think compartment 1 and compartment 3 are going to be quite extensive walks actually, and they will have some really good interest in time. So this is pretty well how that sort of incorporates hopefully the access, linking up with obviously biodiversity, trying to create a wood that's going to hit all these different needs, if you want, and criteria. And I think the outcome of it should be, I would like to think, in a few years, quite a really interesting site to be able to visit in the future for both the public, people coming on site. And I think it will add a lot to that area. It's situated just outside Bridport and it's due to be planted, I'm hoping, this autumn, or they'll start working. So if I just quickly run through my last slide here, I'll give you a bit more, like I've already explained the size there. So it scored very well. The capital works payments, the capital works are everything that's needed to plant that woodland. Trees, tree guards, whether you need various other fencing, lots of things. It has a cap of obviously 10,200. This one didn't come close to that because it didn't need absolutely everything. After that, obviously you've got your 15-year your payments for 15 years of £400 maintenance payments. So that's just to ensure that everything is establishing well. This site's quite interesting, the fact they won't be using sprays, or they don't want to, which is absolutely fine. So obviously weed control is quite key in the first few years of establishing a woodland. It's all going to be trimmed, so it'll be a little bit more labour intensive. So that maintenance payment really helps them pay for that work. And we've also used some mulch mats as well around the bottoms of the trees to keep that weed burden low just while those trees establish initially. It scored up for the close to settlements payment, which was those pink blobs that Sarah showed on her previous slide. That's obviously paid at £600, and it obviously scored for the permissive access, which I think is the really interesting part of this. I think water quality and higher nature recovery. Now, higher nature recovery generally comes when we're talking about linking woodlands together and making a more contiguous larger area of woodland, and this one scored again for that. So these additional payments, you get your payments to create the woodland, which are your capital payments if you want. And once that woodland is then created, you get this one-off additional contribution payment, and this one, is quite high as they've got the permissive access. I think overall, quite an interesting and good site for the future. So it's a really good example, I think, of how you can get access, you can get benefits, biodiversity, creating woodland cover on land, existing land that was really relatively poor. It was very sort of rough grazing. So it's it's hit a lot of goals, I think, this one. So it's hopefully that's quite interesting to you to be able to actually see what we're talking about here. And great that the actual owners putting on bird hides. They aren't funded. It's something they want to do themselves to allow people when they are there to actually hopefully be able to see some wildlife. They're going to do those. There's going to be some, like I said, some picnic tables or somewhere, or maybe not. I think they're thinking more like sort of benches. There's really quite an interesting stuff. So hopefully that was a bit useful, so you can see a visual of how this all works in sort of practicality.
Could we just give back one slide before we move on?
Of course, yes. This one.
That pale green area up by the road.
Yeah.
Is that available as parking or what?
There isn't parking. This is a footpath that doesn't have parking at this site.
So how am I supposed to get there?
There will be parking on the owner's land, which is actually a holiday park, so that you could there, but it is quite steep to get to the site. So it's just in addition an extension of the existing public motorway. This isn't an all access site, as in suitable roadways. This is very much woodland rides and pathways.
We've had a major problem for many years of open access islands where land has been designated as open access in accordance with the legislation. The snag is you have to commit an act of trespass to get there. Right. So, we do want to feel confident that public money has been used to create sites that I can actually get to.
Yeah.
That's why it links into either roads or footpaths.
It has to link to a road or a footpath with any of these.
Yeah, so in this case, it's a road.
Well, no.
No, it's not a road. It's a foot. Sorry, if I just show you, if I just point. So you've got this. This is the existing footpath, which comes underneath under a tunnel, underneath the road here, and exits here. And I think the larger site itself is here. This footpath, I believe, just from memory, goes along here, and again, it links. I think it goes along here and back onto here, so they both come underneath here, underneath the road.
Whereabouts is it?
Whereabouts is it? Just outside Bridport.
West or east?
West. Yes. Off the A35 is the red road there, but it links into an existing public right of way. So there is scope, I believe. Am I right, Sarah? And that you can, for all access, that can be done through infrastructure.
Yeah, but with the 10% cap.
But there is a 10% cap, so there is if they wish to, they can apply.
In general, the A35 is a clear way. So you can't, the majority of it, you can't just simply stop and say, oh, I'll go for a walk here.
No.
Actually,
can I jump in on this one? Sorry, Phil, is that all right if I jump in on this one? So, Rowley, yeah, thanks for that. I'm not sure if you realise as part of this project. Dorset Council is actually the landowner between compartments 3 and compartment 4. This is actually part of one of our sites that we in the past have.
That's right.
Yeah, so we've got 2 footpaths that go through there, W1893 and W1819, both of which currently come down from Simmonsbury Parish, sort of south of Farmer Granda Road, as you say, and the other one comes up from a bridleway, which is near to Highlands End. Of course, I'd be quite happy taking on the points involved just to have a chat maybe how we can use our land in order to increase access onto this new piece of land that the landowner's kindly giving over. And then with the potential for looking at how we can have access, for say, how we can increase access from our side through for people who may be wanting to visit the area but aren't able to come down and use the tunnel or come up from the other side. So really interested to work with yourselves and with the landowners on that if you could help facilitate.
More than happy to sort of open that conversation because I can understand that effectively that the pieces between the two, isn't it? It's sort of switched in there between the two, which would be lovely if there is a possibility of that happening.
No, we'd be very much for that. So we've got the woodland and a little bit of wet grassland and reed bed and other bits and pieces in there. So all working in there. And I know the landowner as well. We've worked very closely on other projects in the past. So I think this could actually be it's quite fortuitous you've come up and used this as your case study because I wasn't aware of this one. Yeah. I think actually we can add benefit to it.
Yeah, it's really add to gains, I think. So I'd love to, more than happy. Please, we'll get in contact.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rory.
Thanks.
Andy, I've got you next on my list. Would you like to come in? Oh, sorry, Nikki.
Oh, yes, please. Can I just sort of take one step back from the minutiae of the delivery? And I can. One of the problems, of course, I think, and one of the things that this scheme has tried to address is people knowing about the permissive access, because that's always been a bit of a bugbear, hasn't it? That people can put in permissive access and nobody gets to find it. And you've obviously put in a series of measures asking people to advertise in various ways or being close to a community. And so if you had a settlement of, say, only 5 or 10 houses, would you then expect that they would advertise through various intranet sites to the wider public that this was accessible? But I know that so many sites in the past got basically paid for but never used under various other schemes.
I think those communities of that size will be too small to fall within the boundaries of the areas regarded as close to settlements.
Okay.
Nearly all of them are close to towns or where the number of villages really close together. So you'd need to go onto land information search and look at where those blobs for the social, what we call the social layout, are, and that's where these permissive accesses will be located.
Yeah.
And it's the landowner's responsibility to actually do the communication. So they would have to liaise with whatever community groups they feel they need to liaise with in the area in order to advertise.
Yeah, it's part of the agreement that they have to obviously signage and advertise locally through various mediums. You say the internet, but it could be parish council magazines. It could be whatever is most suitable for the site. But they do have to fall in that the pink blob layer, as we call it, which I think we had earlier. I don't know if I won't flick back to be able to qualify for the 3,600 sort of the open access.
So it is mainly around market towns.
It's generally larger, but not larger towns, but market town size, I suppose. Not as a strict rule, but that gives you a rough idea, I would hope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I was pleased to hear you're coming off a footpath. Just on a communication basis, would public rights of way not be marked with their traditional colours on all plans so that at least we can see where those are? It's quite useful. Lots of people don't put them on plans. But you mentioned bridleways, though. Is there a bridleway near there? Someone?
It's a public footpath.
Russell said there was a bridleway.
Yeah, on the side. One of the footpaths comes off a bridleway towards the side.
So, I'm correct, yeah.
Is there any thought that you might have a facility for horses to park temporarily there? I appreciate you don't want them wandering around your woods, but if there is a bridleway that's well used, it might well also provide an opportunity for stop picnic for that.
I think really it's up to the landowner what they want to do. So the baseline is access on foot. If they want to do more than that, then obviously they can.
Okay. Thank you. And the third one, this thing about, so when you're kind of looking to plan you were saying about advertising it, which is excellent. There's a number of places that we look for rights of way and also opportunities. So is it are the pink blobs on Magic Map or somewhere that you would look for land schemes?
They're on land information search.
Yeah, but I don't know land information search.
Well, Rob's going to tell you a little bit about it.
I'll give you a demonstration in the morning.
No, but it's just nice if everything's on Magic Map because that's where the landowners look for all their designation sites.
I think Magic is one of the platforms you can use, but when it comes to understanding the eligibility for our criteria and grants,
as a landowner, if I'm looking at what I can do with my land, it's quite. I go to Magic because it's got all the woodland grants.
If you're a landowner going, I would like to plant woodland, then you would.
No, as a landowner planting.
If you're going to apply for a grant, what I'm saying, if you're going to apply for a grant, that's where we direct you to look at land.
When I rephrase, then it's really helpful to put things onto a central map that has all the designations and information on it, as well as on your own. That's all. Because the layers, if the layer could be copied across, that would be
pretty sure it is.
I mean, Magic is just one platform. I mean, we don't control what content goes on there, unfortunately. But when it comes to applying for a government grant that's Forestry Commission backed, we do provide you with the information that's needed, so you can find out whether you're eligible or not. I understand you prefer it at a central point.
I mean, no, it's an additional. You've got to have your own sites, obviously, but it happens in it has most of the opportunities on Magic Map. So it's the first place I go to when I'm looking at my land and what I can put on it. That's all. Right. And also, it's permissive, won't it? So it won't be on Dorset Explorer or Rights Way Map.
Not permissive maps.
No. Okay, thank you. Looks a great scheme.
Well, I would like to pop in first, if I may, because we're on the subject of equestrian access here. And are you familiar with the 1996 Concordat between the British Horse Society and Forestry Commission?
I am, having worked for Forestry England for some time.
Brilliant. Well, at the heart of it is to strengthen the collaboration between Forest Enterprise and the BHS in promoting responsible access to the Forestry Commission estate for recreation. And also, Forest England will allow open access to all Forestry Commission and woodland on roads and tracks where we have no need to regulate access. And it goes on to say that Forest England will prepare an annual gazetteer of woodlands where access is available in conjunction with user groups. Now, that was a sort of baseline. We're looking to try and strengthen between the two organisations. What consideration do you have for trying to promote equestrian access? Because you've got so many disabled riders and you're trying to promote access for all user groups of all abilities. I think we're missing a trick here.
I think that's the difficulty for us here as the Forest Services arm of the Forestry Commission. it would be more appropriate for somebody from Forestry England, I think, to have that dialogue with and that discussion. As Sarah mentioned at the beginning of her presentation, there are 3 different branches of Forestry Commission. Now, our role is purely to support and promote woodland creation and woodland management to private landowners. Forestry England, however, that is their business to promote access, recreation, wellbeing opportunities, agreements with bridleways associations, geocaches, things like that. So it'd be very difficult for us to sort of fairly comment on that because we're not involved in that day-to-day process. They have a whole team based on recreation for the west of England, and they make their decisions on how to manage that access, right down to the local teams as well. So the guys who manage Wareham Forest, they'll have their own protocols in place. But as far as I'm aware, from memory serves during my time there, he was very proactive, the relationship with bridleway associations, certainly in East Devon, where I previously worked. We had a really good, strong relationship with all our local communities. It was done quite on a smaller, nuanced scale. I'm not sure about the larger agreements there.
I'm just wondering why, when you go and negotiate the access and the rides and so forth, and there is always confusion, and I do understand rides in the forestry context does not mean horse rides.
Sometimes, yeah.
But I'm not the general public. I have, if you like, a more specialised knowledge. But not when you negotiate access. Say, look, we have this Concordat. I know it's not specifically with permissive land, but is there a possibility you could allow equestrian access, seeing as we've only got around 20%, 22% of the public rights of way network available to us?
It's down to the landowner and their objectives. I mean,
yes, but if you hide, the landowner is probably oblivious to the equestrian access possibility. And if you just said, look, is there any possibility you could link into bridleways and allow equestrian access?
I mean, we could. It's difficult. It's very difficult because we could have a similar argument with any governing body, butterfly conservation, say, and we could potentially be pushing their agenda to create more butterfly-friendly areas, bridleway areas. And I think we've got to be careful, as much as our role is to get trees in the ground. We're here to create and manage resilient woodlands for the future. Access is one of the many issues or opportunities that we can present to landowners.
It's made me think about that. Thank you for because it's when you are on site, the woodland officer and discussing these sites, it may be worth flagging that it does, because not that many have bridleways always through them.
There aren't that many bridleways. That's the problem. Trying to get riders off road.
I mean, I'm thinking sort of the cases that I've done over the last 3 years or so. Very few bridleways, I think, through the actual site. But if it does, I'm sure. Another thing that I could discuss with the landowner at REAP, essentially.
Yeah.
And say, actually, it's got, by the way, you could. Is that something? They may be supported to do so, but it's really very much down to them at application stage what they decide they want to do on their land.
Might be an opportunity for you to promote to landowners that as well that there are opportunities paid for woodland creation that could be purely dedicated to equestrian access.
But it's a two-way process. And we're here to facilitate access. That's access for all. And here is an opportunity presenting itself. And I'm just wondering how we can create betterment of the schemes. Something to chat on.
I think it is.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
I'm still a bit hung up on this question about publicity and communications and so on. And I'd be surprised if more than about 1% of population are aware of magic and will have the information system. So, and the Joe self, you start out with your ordnance survey maps and possibly with Dorset Explorer, a realistic option. And so if you take the analogy with open access, when open access was introduced, the OS did introduce a sort of a shading overlay on their maps to show you where the open access sites were. Is there any way, for example, Dorset Explorer, these sites of yours could be designated as some sort of overlay shading or something like that?
I think the issue is that it's permissive access 30 years. And how often is Dorset Explorer updated? You know, how often do these things change? Because what we can't have is something going on a map like that and never being taken off, you know, and people thinking that they can still walk there, and perhaps the landowner deciding after 30 years they don't want it to be.
For paper maps, yes, I would agree with you. That's always been the stumbling block. But in principle, with Dorset Explorer, where it's a controllable beast, and in principle, it's updated for its day.
It is updated daily. There are constant layer and information changes, so it is possible that something like that could be.
But does it currently have permissive access?
It doesn't have permissive access, but it does have lots of layers with lots of information that don't necessarily relate to public rights of way. You know, there's a whole host of so it could just be a layer which says that these are Forest Commission permissive access woodlands, for example.
Yeah, that does open up, and I mean, like I say, there's all sorts of. If there's ones that start at different times and need to go.
Well, exactly, yeah. We need to have very specific information in it.
It's not like they're all starting on the same year,
no,
and they will be for 30 years. They're obviously going to be, I suspect we'll be planting trees for
a few years.
A couple of years, yeah. So how that works, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, potentially it's great to guide people there, but I don't know how that.
It would depend on our IT teams, I think, as much as anything.
To release the information.
I'm just having a look. Dedicated access on there and open access land. So there's quite a few different. So it's just a question of transferring the layers over between the teams and compatible IT, of course. But yeah, it is on there, and it's a good place to look for walks and access.
We'll have a conversation about it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that can happen. Yeah, I think the main driver is going to be signage and advertising. You know, it's obviously that thing they must absolutely do. You know, with this grant. So that's how I think a lot of awareness is hopefully going to be raised.
All right.
There are two further questions on the screen.
Please. Oh, sorry.
Address those first.
Vanessa. Sorry, Russell.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to say that, yeah, with Dorset Explorer, there's absolutely no issues with putting this kind of information on there. It would be retained within the countryside layer, which is where we have our dedicated access land and open access land layers. So we'd have a permissive access land layer. And anything that we put on there can be time caveated as well, so that it would be reviewed after however long. So in this case, 30 years from whatever your commencement date is. And then if it would be for up to us to then contact either forestry or the landowner to say, is this continuing? And if so, update it from there. But yeah, just from that perspective, it's not a problem for us to have these mapped or any other areas like this mapped, assuming that there are proper agreements in place.
And then back to Nikki again.
Hello. Just two things. One, just to mention that since Magic no longer shows any rights of way, that mapping layer seems to have been removed about 2 years ago, and I have mentioned it to old colleagues in Natural England, and I don't know what's happened, but it looks like it's gone and gone forever. I'm not sure that Magic's going to be as useful for access in some ways again. But also, and this isn't to dig at the three people sitting there, but 30 years, if we think about it, and I don't think we should get too hung up about this, but woods take a long time to get from the point of being a sapling up to one's knee to being something that looks like a wood. And so I suspect that at the point where these woods are becoming lovely woodland sites, 30 years will elapse, and one can only hope that the landowner decides to extend the permissive access, or that new schemes come in place that will extend the 30 years. It's just a comment.
Right, thank you. That's a very.
I think it's a little.
You wouldn't have a bit to say. Sorry.
We said we were going to do questions at the end, but we sort of we got went into it. So
I think my time is. Please go ahead.
I haven't got any more, but Rob has. He's just going to run through some other access.
It's okay. So what's been covered predominantly is people creating new woodlands and allowing access. I was just going to do a short bit on those who have already got an existing woodland. So obviously this is one of your more well-established woodlands, but they are now considering allowing people into that for access opportunities. So yeah, it's another extension of what we offer forest services. It's all tied into the countryside stewardship higher tier element. So whereas we did England Woodland Creation offer, this is very much about you've got your own woodland, people are using it anyway, generally for dog walking. You may as well claim some payments to try and improve that access potential. But you must have a woodland management plan in place initially to do so. So we encourage people to take that route first. That will then qualify you as a landowner for what's called the WD2 woodland improvement payments. So it's, as I say, it's all tied into that countryside stewardship higher tier. Basic outline of WD2. It's aimed at predominantly improving biodiversity first and foremost within a woodland, and to create more resilient woodlands for climate change in the future. As we all know, it's changeable weather recently, and that continues to be projected for the future as well. So there's some basic payments for WD2. If your site's between 3 and 10 hectares, you'll receive £1,000 per year. Anything above 10 hectares, it moves up to £127 per hectare per year. So this is just a general payment that you receive to improve your woodland before you start tagging on any additional options there. A mandatory obligation is surrounding access, but as you mentioned earlier, this is access more to keep our open space and our ride network in place, not necessarily targeting public access at this stage. However, you asked about the eligibility criteria and land information search earlier and what that mapping platform looks like. So it's fairly simple to find by heading onto Google, typing in land information service, forestry, it will take you straight there. If this works for me now, I'll give you a quick, hopefully, demonstration of what that looks like. It'll take you to the gov.uk pages. If you scroll down our site, there's a very useful operations note here, which is a guidance document, which will show you how to use the system. And then there's a link here to the system itself. So very similar in its layout, I suppose, to what you'd be used to. It brings you initially just to the kind of wider map of the UK. If we zoom in to somewhere more familiar at the moment.
Showing on this.
Yeah, it's
not coming up.
What they're showing.
It might take a bit.
Fair enough. Okay. I am attempting a live demonstration for those online in the background and those in the room. I can't see that, but we'll resort to just the notes. But basically what you're presented with when you go onto this mapping system is what's screenshot here at the bottom. And we've mentioned the pink blobs, the coloured blobs, which is what we refer to. Basically, those areas where you're eligible, you meet the criteria to receive those access payments. There on the right of the screen, you'll see the map layers, the table contents. It's pretty vital that you've got the targeting and scoring. And then as you scroll down, you'll see CSHT social. So that's your countryside stewardship higher tier social payment that you could qualify for. If your woodland falls within that blob area, then you would be entitled to get that additional support to manage your woodland to improve access on the site. Sarah mentioned before, there's very similar look and feel to the UCO. So if you're creating your woodland as well, very similar look to it as well. The option would again be under that targeting and scoring layer.
Say UCO instead.
Yeah,
but they're pretty well the same, aren't they?
Yeah. So there's just a couple of examples as well with WD2 about public access specifically. So you might notice a couple of asterisks next to these points. This is as of January 2024 and some for as of February 2023. Higher tier is currently under review with the government, so we're not sure yet what payments are for this year. However, we are expecting at least neutral or better. Everything seems to have gone up recently for woodland creation, woodland management. So the payments that you see on screen at the minute should be pretty rigid or improve still more. So positive, hopefully. So there's things like educational access at the top, which obviously allows for school pupils to visit, care farming clients, things like that. So you get a payment of $363 per visit. WS4, so all of these have got codes attached to them. These are all the grants that you can apply for, basically. Access for people, £92 per hectare per year. That's for whole or part parcels which are currently in the woodland, which currently lack access, but the owner would like to encourage more access on their land. AC1, access capital items, similarly to the UCO examples that you heard from Rolly and Sarah. This is about creating new access infrastructure, so it's not things that are currently on the public right-of-way network. It's those extended permissive paths that you're creating, so that would open up bridle gates, wide-bar gates, styles, whatever it might be, signage. So there's up to 100% of actual costs of those for current woodland owners, a fairly significant chunk there. And then the final one there is countryside educational access visit accreditation. So that is basically sending someone within the landowner's cohort or staff off onto a forest schools course. So an opportunity just to expand that qualification network and have somebody on site who's able and comfortable to deliver some recreational activities within the woodland. So just a kind of zoomed in example here. So the site in the very centre, just to the west of Dorchester, is Goldsmiths. It's a good site to use because, as you can see, there's already a public right of way that kind of spans the woodland itself. So it runs down the west hand side and then off to the northeast. So this would be a great example of where people are not yet allowed into that woodland, but there's a nice public right of way right next to it. So if this woodland owner would choose to open up access and allow people to roam within there, that's where you would see those additional payments, those contributions through higher tier would start to stack up nicely. A great example to extend the bridle access in this one as well, as that is a bridleway that runs down the side of it. So this is where we could start having those conversations with landowners about presenting more access opportunities, if they wish.
Can you let us have the slides from today? If you send them to us.
Of course, yeah, that was our hope.
Fantastic. You can circulate it.
That is it. That's it. So we'd left a little room for questions at the end, so please feel free if you do have any more.
Load of questions earlier, but I would like to thank you for the presentations you've done and also the thoughts of where we can perhaps make some additional access gains in the future. I'm seeing one hand up.
Yeah, it's me again, sorry. Just one question regarding that, for instance, that piece of woodland you just mentioned. Are you proactively going out and seeking these landowners in order to ask them if they're willing to give access to the public and offering them the incentives that come along with it, or is it very much down to the landowners needing to come to you to find out about this and then come to you and ask?
From my experience, it's fairly dualistic, actually. We're there to present them with the options that are available to them where they can and can't get additional payments. But inevitably it comes down to the appetite of the landowner themselves. So we can do a bit. We can sell those offers to some extent, but it's very difficult in some instances. And probably all aware, a lot of landowners are quite happy with their own little bit, and they want more public in there. So
those sort of conversations, I think, with the chip in, but with CS or countryside stewardship, generally come about by them wanting to seek further money, possibly for their woodlands. And at that point, we would then have those conversations as far as access. I don't think we're always, proactively sort of hunting down new woodland owners, but obviously we're out on the ground all the time speaking to woodland owners, myself and Bob, so it tends to come up conversations to be honest. Did you know, and that's kind of how, you could do that.
No, it's something I was thinking about when you go with our wider aims and objectives of our team, that it might be something that we could, we're having meetings with landowners regularly. So it might be something that we could sort of touch bases with them and say, it goes through here. Did you know you could get money for this if you allowed people to walk through here? And, there could be something that, we could assist, assist ourselves by assisting you, if you like, and with the long-term aim of just getting more public recreation in woodlands. So, of course, we know we're looking at it from the health and well-being side of things, as well as the levels of fitness and getting people into any kind of green space. But woodlands especially seems to have a real appeal to people, and this might be something we bring up at our senior ranger meetings, whereby we sort of say, well, if there is a piece of woodland there, potentially that could work with yourselves and us in order to help facilitate some more access. So thank you very much for that. That was really, really brilliant slides and presentation.
Thank you.
Vicky, you wanted to come back in. I've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a comment to say that it's really great that you're doing educational access, including promoting Forest School, because as you no doubt know, and don't know whether everybody else does, that if children don't access woodlands when they're, or as people don't access woodlands while they're children, they're far more reluctant to access them when they get to adulthood. So, Forest School is a really good way to ensure laying down a foundation for that feeling easy within a woodland setting for the rest of their lives. So I think that's great that you're doing that.
Thank you. Right. I'm conscious of time. We're head on 11:15. I'm not sure whether to take the break now or to bring you in, Russ. Is everybody happy to? How long is a piece of string, Russ?
Well, going by the last one, it was, depends how many questions come through. I haven't got too much to say on my bits and pieces. I know Graham has got some bits and pieces to add into this segment as well. So what time was break?
No.
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, we'll probably go for another quarter of an hour, I suppose, from mine and Graham's perspective.
Okay, right, let's kick on. Russ, floor's yours.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Just talk. Oh, something's just not loading on my screen. Sorry. There we go. Just talking about a little bit of green space management and maintenance. We're quite lucky this year. One of the things I want to start off talking about is our bridge budget. It was mentioned during the last ROIP about our standard bridge budget of 160k that we get every year. We've managed to up that a little bit more this year. So we're actually been able to put a few more bridges in across the county using some other pots of funding that we've very graciously been offered. So we're putting some other bits and pieces in, and So this year should be a good year for access across our watercourses, and being the way some of them washed away over the very wet winter we had, we are very grateful for this. Stats wise, it's been a typical May into June, and then sort of in July we are trying to catch up with it. We had a very late growth year this year. It seemed to be, we waited till quite towards the end of May before we had the real strong spring flush growth, and everything came at once. So that did put us on the back foot in respect to our standard cutbacks on the verges, on the rights of way. Everything grew up at once, and then everything came in at once for us to resolve. So we are catching up with the backlog. I mean, in the last quarter, we received 1,363 jobs from members of the public. And to say most of that was in relation to cutbacks, so cutting back the vegetation, the overgrowth on the rights of way. And so thankfully we are making strong headway in clearing that backlog now. It was mentioned in the last one that during the last row up that we'd having some more staff coming in via our apprenticeship scheme. So most of those boots are now on the ground. So thank you, Graham, for sorting all those bits, sorting out those members of staff. They're a massive benefit to our service, as I hope you all know, and we have great staff retention when it comes to our apprenticeships, and something that we promote regularly. So yeah, we've got a good new crop of staff that are eager to get out there. So those boosts in our numbers will be reflected in our output as well. I suppose just mention the ROIP whilst we're in this section. So the timeline is as it is still on the website. So being written and then out for consultation and then to be published in 2025. What is the old ROIP is still our current ROIP, which is still going forward. And of course, the LAF will be brought in for consultation and as a key party in writing it and seeing the first drafts and working through it. So yeah, the timeline on the website for 2025 is the one we are now working to. So with July to October being the writing time, and then the drafts coming out then for consultation. Do you want to answer? Have you any questions relating to anything I've said before? Can I hand over to Graham?
So just about the ROIP, a couple of things have cropped up lately where there was a mapping exercise for the ROIP, which was very interesting to look at where we might need linkage and extra rights of way. Is that available? Because it'd be useful for some of the other projects which are looking at where to provide access.
It's not available on any. It's on all of us on our internal servers at the moment, but I can have a look at making that accessible. I just have to liaise with the person to put it all together and see what we can do and see where we can present that. So I'll take that away. And so I can't see who asked the question. Who was?
Fiona.
Fiona. Sorry, Fiona. I'll take that away. And if we could make that, Phoebe, could you make that an action for this meeting for me to find out and then to get that information out?
I'm just wondering, Russ, I know the ROIP seems to be disappearing further and further over the horizon over the last few years. Is it possible that the LAF could contribute to the working draft for the ROIP?
Yes, I don't see why not. Yeah, in
Could it be published amongst us what we've got at the moment?
I think that'd be more applicable in September when some of the other bits and pieces have been brought together. So yes, I know our next meeting for this will be November, won't it? So if we could have said maybe early September that we can have something to bring forward to yourself, and then we can have a discussion over that early draft.
So that is current condition is still very much in note form in any form of structured paragraphs and coherent sentences.
Electronic note form.
Yeah.
Even if we had sight of it in a very rough form, it would at least allow us to put some form of stamp on it, what our feelings are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll arrange something then for, you say, Russ, it was early September?
So yeah, looking at September for that. So this like to pull all those bits and pieces together and cast aside some of the, well, not necessarily cast aside, but just, let's say, make it more coherent and make it more of a working document that we can then share and then work on together to finalise.
Are we thinking that, in my mind, I've perhaps thought that you've got the existing ROIP and you're sort of making modifications to it. But from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a completely new document. That doesn't represent. Okay.
It's going to be taken. Yeah, we're going for something different this time. We're going, rather than following and just amending what we already had, this is a completely new document.
Okay.
But using the information from what was consulted on, running up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will await.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Greg.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, what I've got is just a bit of a run round from each of the senior areas about what they've been up to, what projects they've been kind of working on. So in the west of the county, so Stuart Samples area, he's been doing some servicing on the coast path down at Fleet. Tidmore and Halstock Parish Council have been installing some gates on the rights of way there. He's been replacing a bridge near Shipton and 2 bridges on the Jubilee Way at Stoke Abbott. And doing some investigation work into the gas main on the proposed bridleway at Chidiock. In the Purbeck area, Katie Black's patch, obviously her main recent issues have been the coast path disappearing into the sea, requiring about 1.5 kilometres of new fencing to move the path back into the coastal fields. And obviously that is needing steps, signage and bridges, handrail and replacement and removal work, all to do with the England coast path. Obviously much liaison with farmers and landowners. She's in the process of agreeing the new England coast path route through Lulworth to avoid one of the firing ranges, which is quite important. The diversion of the coast path at Houndstooth due to the landslip is underway. And obviously, therefore, the current path is closed and there is a 3-mile inland diversion. She's got several bridges out on the public rights of way, all being replaced this year from the budget that Russ mentioned. She's completed some surfacing works through Section 106 money on the Giddy Green path. No idea where that is. Hopefully somebody will. Brilliant. Okay. And also some improvements on the Priest Way path through SIL funding. In the east, Sophie and Ben have been dealing with the Older Hope planning inquiry for 1,700 homes, and obviously hoping to get a decent amount of funding to improve the public rights of way in that neck of the woods. Lots of bridge replacements again, particularly one at Lower Common on a 3-legged cross, which is being replaced with a GRP, glass reinforced plastic bison type bridge. Also a footbridge in Cranbourne Farm. Some work on the Castleman Trailway as well, and she's been dealing with a couple of badger set issues as well, and I've got a little bit more information about that. But business is information. Dave in the central area, working on the Piddle Valley surfacing project, and then another one down at Braddypool Lake. Also, he's been working on improving access and visitor experience at the high angle batteries on Portland. Again, more bridge replacements, Watergates Lane, Broadmain, and a footpath bridge in Thornford. As Russ mentioned as well, plenty of vegetation issues have been reported. And a couple of issues in Minturn Magna, where he's been working with the landowners to reopen up footpaths, and at Weymouth Bay Holiday Park, following an obstruction after a planning application down there. For me, in the north area, again, plenty more bridge replacements. We've got 5 underway in Sturmis Newton, Storms, and Todber. Also doing some resurfacing work on the North Dorset Trailway at Gaines Cross, and some footpath work in Winterbourne Whitechurch, resurfacing work in conjunction with the landowner. Also going to be resurfacing the North Dorset Trailway in Stallbridge, and plenty of the connecting rights of way using section 106 money from the housing developments there. We're dealing with a fair few ploughing and cropping issues, as are all the senior rangers. And I was wondering whether this might be a good way for the LAF to get involved in putting an article in the local press. Might be a good way of just kind of getting to more landowners to say about what are their responsibilities, and also as a potential recruiting mechanism to have landowners on board as well. Again, like all the other senior rangers, we have been inundated with planning applications, and housing development has been particularly awkward. I've got a particularly awkward one up just on the outskirts of Gillingham, where they've got a 6-year phased development. So I've requested that they are going to produce a mini rights-of-way management plan, so at least they've got some idea about how to close and how long all these processes take, the diversions. I've been working on a kind of a developer's guidance note to give out to any housing developer, which I have here. If anybody would, it's just in draft form at the moment. If anybody wants to read that through while we have a cup of tea in a minute. We've also been revamping all of our enforcement letters just to get a greater level of consistency about what we're saying to landowners right across the county. Much more. Like Russ said, we've just employed 8 level 4 apprentice countryside rangers right across the county. And just your heart, Philip, Dartnell Lane. We're working with our highways department to get that resurfacing project over the line. And loads more besides. So that's just kind of a quick round of the area. But you can have those notes.
Please.
No problem. Look, I haven't even read it all.
One thing Graham and I forgot to mention there is one of the key ones for the in and around Dorchester is the Three Bears Cottage bridleway, where the River Frome washed out the that was a historic, I think it's medieval bridge, and the River Frome overtopped and then washed out the path. So there's some stepping stones at the moment, but are successful in getting some level up funding for that, and the contract for that has been given out today. And so the works for that are due to commence and be completed by the end of September, which involves rebuilding the riverbanks, putting some surfacing down, some new signage and some other bits and pieces. So that section of well-used bridleway between Stinsford, Kingston Moorwood and Dorchester would due hopefully mid-September be completed. So that'd be a big one, and another big community asset for Dorchester back up, and people are able to use it again. So we've been working with the Environment Agency for permissions on that one due to the sensitivities. So that's another piece of funding we were successful in getting, which is going to help with public access in the area.
Just whizzing back to the Castlemaine Trailway, where enhanced surfacing is going in. That's to make additional sections multi-use, isn't it?
I don't have the details, but more than likely.
I think Pip might have to say something on that later on. But I would just like to thank you for the work you've done on Dartnell Lane up at Broad Oak. What has been achieved there is nothing short of fantastic. I was sent a photograph a couple of years ago of a horse having to more or less cross-step its hoof prints to go down there. It's just like a V shape. You couldn't cycle down it. The 2 handlebars were touching either end. They've gone through, resurfaced it, and it's a major strategic link in that area. So it's just not an isolated route. It really enhances the off-road network. And I really must pay great thanks to you and the team, Graham. It's really well merited. Thank you. Right. I think now it's an opportune moment to have a quick break. If we could try and come back 22, how does that suit people? Just try and catch up a little bit of time. And the Forestry Commission people, thank you again. Please do take your leave if you wish. Thank you.
We'll have a cup of tea.
Right. Okay. We're looking at item 6 now. BCP, Council Green Space Management and Maintenance. Pip, are you online?
I'm online. Can you hear me?
All yours. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Always appreciate the after biscuit and tea slot, actually, because I read a study which shows that in courts of law, judges will hand out much more lenient sentences after lunch. Interesting little tidbit there. Not that I'm on trial today, but I'm going to plead my case anyway. So, BCP Rights of Way update, July 2024. Let's cover some news. I'm going to whip through fairly fast to catch up with time. So, a bit of news here. We have a new leader of the council. Councillor Millie Earl is now our leader, following it was the 23rd, last night's council meeting. Councillor Earl now heads the Three Towns Alliance administration after previous leader, Councillor Vicky Slade, relinquished the role after being elected as Member of Parliament for Mid Dorset and North Pool in the general election on the 4th of July. The only other thing to say there is I believe that Councillor Andy Hadley remains as our portfolio holder there. Other better news, sadly, Ellen House, who you would have met a few times, has left the team. She's moved on to bigger things in the traffic regulation order team. She's still close by, but that is a vacant position at the moment. We are going to be advertising for a new rights of way officer imminently, and hopefully we'll have somebody in position by autumn. Okay, so moving on to more projects, things going on. Okay, so I think in previous meetings, I may have talked to you about the Canford School diversion, the diversion of public footpath 29. Previously, we had looked at this some years ago under section 119, just doing a diversion in the, well, we made it out as being in the landowners and the public's interest. We tried to make a case for both. But it sort of fell by the wayside because there's no public support for the diversion. Years later, Canford School still would like to see a diversion, so they are applying under section 119B, and they are making their case that there is sufficient antisocial behaviour and crime affecting the school to warrant this diversion. So this application is live at the moment. We are carrying out some consultations. We had to pause for a little while to do anything public because of the pre-election period. So we've been doing some internal consultations with various stakeholders, safeguarding teams, and now we're talking with the police because, of course, the assessment that has to be made is that the level of crime is sufficient that would warrant or demand the diversion of this path, and also that it is the last chain, the last link in the chain for securing their site. So it cannot be seen as assisting their security effort. It must be the very last thing that is stopping Canford School from securing their perimeter. So we need to conduct a really detailed investigation into how they have secured the rest of their perimeter. I'm hoping that the police can help us with that. Just a bit more of a close-up view here. You can see where the existing path pops across the middle of the site, and it would be diverted along the very outside of the perimeter of the school. So ongoing investigations there. Next one, Harley Golf enforcement. A little bit too much has been said about this over the past few meetings, so I'm only going to keep this very brief. Planning enforcement is now proceeding. It was up in the air as to whether we could actually proceed with any kind of planning enforcement. Reason being that a lot of the driving range extension was due to they rolled out this existing bund. Let me give you a laser pointer here. This thing along here. that was actually, I don't think it was a legal structure. So when they rolled it out, it didn't look as though that could actually be enforceable. But the more eagle-eyed amongst us would see that there is in fact a drainage culvert here. And if you have a look at the before and here's the after, the drainage culvert's been completely filled in. That is enforceable. So that means that planning enforcement can get on with their work. So I imagine this will result in a full rollback of the development and will result in the restoration of the path as it was before, which would be a good result. If it doesn't, then obviously we're going to have to take a view, but there's several planning reasons as to why that probably cannot possibly go ahead as a development. I believe it's to do with the inability of the driving range to come up with sort of a water displacement plan which satisfies the River Authority's demands. So the Stour Valley, this project is ongoing. What you are looking at is just a little GIS project that put together. And you can see here, Stour Valley, you can see in faint pink is area shaded in here. And then what I've done is I'm just looking at the paths, the path aspect. So I've color coded all the paths as they exist and don't exist. Anything which is green looks to be pretty good in terms of its access. Yellow means there's a bit of work to be done. Red means there's major work. And black means that the path does not exist yet. And we're looking to make that. I'm not going to give you a fully detailed breakdown of every little proposal we've got for the Stour Valley. But there's numerous things that you will know about or might not know about. For example, the more ambitious things are to do with river crossings. In order to sort of get the Stour Valley sort of fully connected, we really need more river crossings. So we've got things like augmenting or replacing the existing bridge down by Canford School. You'll know that as the wobbly bridge. It isn't very fit for purpose for getting bikes and all the rest of it down. There's also other ambitions here. We've got the existing Sang, which is fantastic as it is, but of course it lacks sort of any connection with the Dorset side. So we have ideas. We'd love to see a new path in here, maybe even another river crossing there. Moving further south east. There's loads of things that we really want. We want a pedestrian crossing, or maybe rather what we'd be looking at here is maybe a Pegasus crossing, upgrading footpath 29 to a bridleway. We've got a bridleway in at Millam's Mead here. We've also sort of marked out some areas which are likely to come up for development. The Doddsbury Golf Course looks to be likely to come up for development, and there's a nice big area of farmland which might come up for development. So we've sort of earmarked these out as potential areas where we could get some really fantastic gains for entirely new paths, which would be really amazing to sort of link all this up. And then we're talking about sort of additional road crossings, all the rest of it. You know, our ambitions are far ahead of our budgets at the moment. Of course, there's the river crossing north of Red Hill, and there's also tacking on another river crossing around about sort of the sewage treatment works around here. There's so many things that we want to do, and the upshot is that we are currently looking at the Community Infrastructure Levy Fund, and the amount of money in there is roughly, I think it's about 7.5 million, which seems like quite a nice amount, and it's up for anybody to sort of bid for that. So we've already had meetings internally about how we're going to sort of divvy that up, and I have applied for pretty much everything you see before you. There's dozens of things that we've asked for, and we had a meeting amongst the more sort of strategic senior members of staff trying to figure out where this money is going to go. Sort of mixed results with what we might and might not get. I think that it seemed that the emphasis is currently going to be placed on the maintenance of some existing structures, particularly things like Pool Lifting Bridge, which needs a new lick of paint and all the rest of it. And unfortunately, things like that don't come cheap. I think it's going to cost at least like $1 million just for that. And then they want to spend a few million with some smart traffic controls and all the rest of it. And well, when you look at the sort of the amount of money which is going to be left, some of the things that are more favorably being looked at are things like replacing the full system of signage that we have and waymarking along the Stour Valley, which is a good first step. And also actually really timely. I don't know how many of you have been out there, but I'm often out walking the Stour Valley, and I have found that quite a few of these directional signs, they appear to be coming up to sort of the end of their natural lifespan, and they're all wooden construction. So I'm finding more and more of these waymarking and signposts, finger posts, laying in various hedges. So the time is nigh, I think, for if we are successful with that bid, to actually come up with an entirely new set of signs, replacing everything, because it's all about to fall over, all the rest of it. So big new set of signs, loads of waymarkers. I've been talking to Catherine Church of the National Trust about this. We just had a meeting a couple of days ago about sort of how we're progressing with trying to chase up the Stour Valley stuff. And Catherine showed me an early sort of draft. I don't have anything to show you here, but we will maybe by the next meeting, an early draft of what the signage and the branding is going to look like, and the waymarkers. Very happy to report that it looks really fantastic. The branding looks really, really good. The signage, the waymarkers especially, just look so nice. So we're going to be really eager, hopefully once we get that money, to start putting those out. So yeah, good things to report, but still sort of early days for getting all this stuff. And we are still going to be drafting in sort of more detailed bids for the more ambitious things like the river crossings, like the new paths, and just seeing if we can at least make a start on some of those just by doing sort of scoping works. Just any way we can, just to start work on all these different bits and pieces. So yeah, we'll catch up next time, and hopefully by the next meeting, I'll be able to tell you exactly sort of where the SIL money is going to be allocated. Okay, so Avon Valley Path. So this is something where I do and I don't really have updates. I think sort of the main update, if there is one. Let me just show you that we are in possession of some nice drone photos, which are much more useful for actually showing everybody exactly what is going on down there. Let me see if I can share that. No, I don't think it's going to allow me to share it, There. Well, I don't know why it's not going to allow me to share it. I'm going to have to figure out another way of doing it. For some reason, it's sort of excluding the Windows picture display in any case. Let me see where I can. Oh, here's what we'll do. I'll share my screen. That'll do it. All right. Can you see it now?
Nope. Blank at the moment.
You cannot see. That's strange. You should be able to. Let me just try that once more. No, can you not see the image of that?
dark sky.
Sorry, what can you see exactly?
No,
Nothing.
Oh, your initials. Your initials will come up.
Nothing. Okay.
Just your initials.
Oh, you should be able to see an image. Oh well. Well, let me. Let me try just one more thing then. I'll see if I can just take a screenshot of this. If not, then we'll just have to make do with my face. Technology.
Question WD-40.
While you're just looking at the technology, Pip, I just wondered how you got on with the Castlemaine Trail site visit with a view to increasing equestrian access on it.
Yes.
Have you?
Okay. For some reason that. Yeah, you just got me. I'm afraid. Yeah. I don't know why it's not allowing me to share images. It's ridiculous. So actually, just on the topic of the Castlemaine Trailway, actually, yeah, we talked about the creation of a new set of equestrian compliance steps going onto the Castlemaine Trailway as part of that SIL meeting, and that is one of the items which we believe will be taken ahead, which is really good news. So that looks to be a given, and also we're also going to be doing some surfacing improvements along the Castlemaine Trailway. I don't think that'll necessarily benefit the equestrian users, but that appears to be one of the more successful items that we do have. So at least pleased to report that. But yeah, just going back to Avon Valley, all I can really say is that we've got some useful drone images, which I would have loved to have shared with you this morning, which I can't. But that is pretty much all we're really looking at the moment is that the flooding is becoming even more entrenched. Areas where we were intending maybe no longer capable of holding a. Oh, okay. Okay, well, let me just turn off the camera. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, it's looking maybe a little bit drearier on the Avon Valley because the water situation is only getting worse. The flooding's slowly getting worse. However, America's state management are saying that they can share with me very, very soon sort of a plan as to where they believe they're going to be installing perhaps a new path. So as soon as I get wind of exactly what their ideas are of coming up with this path, then I'll be very happy to share that with you once it comes in. But I'm not entirely sure exactly what they've got in store for us. They haven't really given us any details ahead of time, but they've been working on their plans as to what they're going to be doing, which is creating sort of this wetland ecology area and just fitting in paths wherever they can. So, yeah, it's sort of some progress, some sort of business as usual, but that is pretty much it. I don't know what else you may wish to discuss. I'm open to questions.
Well, thank you very much. Janet, you've got...
sorry, Pip, I didn't catch. Which estate is it involved in the Avon Valley?
Right, they're called Merrick Estate Management. They're the management company for Lord Merrick, but it's the Hinton Admiral Estate.
I would welcome a bridge across the River Stour that you mentioned. I know that there was one proposed in the Stour Valley project, and there was going to be an active travel route across there, which would have contained a bridge. But I believe that's gone to abeyance now, that route.
Maybe for now. There are aspects of it which we are still making progress on, however. Just north of Red Hill, connecting through to Herne. There's a planning application which was in for a solar farm, and that has now received planning permission. And as part of that development, we have asked for most of that path to be put in anyway. So at least we are getting that link, and we're also going to be trying to build out a link travelling it along the north of the Stour. It would be between there and connecting up to Parley Gulf. So hopefully eventually delivering a decent sized link along there as well. So actually, even though, it's sort of fallen off the radar as far as the Transforming Cities Fund is concerned, as the funds sort of run dry on that, we're still getting results through the development planning process, which is really encouraging. But yes, it is the bridge which remains the jewel in the crown. We desperately need to find a much more ambitious pot of money for. Who knows? With the new Labour government, they might be yielding with that.
Yeah, we can always live in hope, and the main thing is to make sure it's for multi-use.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Andy, sorry, Nikki, your microphone is on.
Yes, sorry.
Paul, question.
Firstly, many thanks for your valiant efforts, Pip. More substantively, I can remember it is several years ago now, the lab was involved in preparing your refreshed rights of way improvement plan. And I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was several years ago. So the question is, are we yet approaching the point where it will be useful to stand back and look at what the plan committed you to doing and saying, well, are we on track to deliver it or not? I don't know whether you find that a helpful process or not.
Or maybe we can certainly look into it and try and timetable out exactly when we'd want to have a look at the rights of way improvement planning. It's still quite early days, I think, for the delivery of the plan. So yeah, I'll take a look at that and get back to you.
Right. Well, thank you very much for a very comprehensive and positive update. We will now move on to item number 7. Vanessa, the legal record team. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you can see that slide.
Yes.
Yes, lovely.
We have it.
Just wanted to make sure that Pip's technical issues weren't contagious. Okay, so just a brief update. I'm afraid, well, as you know, we don't do things that are quite as exciting as the Rangers or BCP projects, but we do our best. So a couple of news items first. Just an update on the implementation of the Deregulation Act. We've recently been advised that there is a recruitment freeze at DEFRA. You may recall the lead for the Rights of Way reform package left a good few months ago now, and he has not yet been replaced. So there is no one leading on the project. And also, given the political circumstances, we are now waiting for direction from the new government. We just don't know what's going to happen or whether it's even on their radar at the moment. So we will update you as soon as we hear anything. And secondly, recruitment issues within the team. You'll recall that Kerry left at the end of last year and was replaced by Alistair, who was already within the team. He was our definitive map assistant, and he's now a case officer and is doing extremely well. So we then advertised for a new definitive map assistant, and we've recruited to that, and the new person will start in September. So that is very welcome, because we are struggling even more than usual to keep on top of things without someone sort of providing the support that we need. So that's good news. Just looking at the figures, currently with DMMOs, we have 240 cases not started. The rate of influx has almost stopped. We're back to pre-BHS project levels now. So that's helping us to sort of get to grips a bit with what is coming in and to actually make a bit of progress. So the figures haven't really changed much from the last report in November, wasn't it? So we've got 48 cases in progress. Of the cases not started, the vast majority of them are British Horse Society project cases. So we can't actually start to investigate them because the landowner has not formally been notified. So in real terms, there are currently 28 in the queue of cases not started that we can actually do. So that sounds slightly less alarming, which is good. The 48 cases in progress, 4 of those are currently with the Planning Inspectorate. And since our last meeting, PINS have confirmed a byway open to all traffic at Chesilbourne Dewlish and a restricted byway at Wentworth Coombe Keynes. There are 29 cases in the queue waiting to be submitted to PINS, which we're currently working on. And a public inquiry update. We have a public inquiry scheduled for Tuesday, the 10th of December, relating to a DMMO claim at Bradford Abbas. This is an old case. We've got a couple of claims in Bradford Abbas area. This is an old one relating to a claimed footpath from East Lane at Saxon Maybank to Coombe Cottages, which is T474. We're currently struggling to find a venue because it's the 10th of December, and if it's not scheduled for yoga, Pilates, breakfast clubs, whatever, it's places are booked up for pre-Christmas events. So we're struggling at the moment. So it may be that we end up holding the inquiry in County Hall, which obviously isn't ideal. We like to be as local as possible. But it does mean that the planning inspectorate requirement for all inquiries to be hybrid is easier for us to deal with, because even if we can find a venue that's available, it might not necessarily have suitable Wi-Fi capacity or broadband capacity to facilitate the requirement for a hybrid meeting. So venue to be confirmed on that. And public path orders, we're still fairly up to date with these. We have 4 cases not started and 35 cases in progress, 11 of which are Town and Country Planning Act applications. 5 of the 35 cases have orders made and are awaiting works before confirmation, and 3 have confirmed orders which are awaiting works before they come into operation. We currently have 1 public path order case with the Planning Inspectorate, which is footpath 51 Dorchester and footpath 6 Winterbourne Moncton. We've recently received an interim decision to confirm with modifications, and that will be advertised by the Planning Inspectorate shortly. There are 2 other PPO cases still awaiting submission to PINS. Chantry Farm, Bedminster, diversion and extinguishment. We have 1 objection from the Open Spaces Society, and Gachet Farm, Thorncombe, is also waiting for submission. There are no objections to that particular order, but we need to get the order modified because the width of the new footpath needs to be amended, because 2 1.2 metre wide bridges were installed on the new route that were not specified in the order. So that's just an admin thing, really. And that's it, really. We're just plodding on with our casework. We've got, as you can see, a lot of cases going on at the moment, and hopefully when our new person starts in September, that will help us to speed things up a bit. We've recently also received a Town and Village Green application for a very small area of land in Wimborne, which we haven't received any new applications for a long time. So we'll pick that one up soon. That just came in last week, so I haven't had a chance to have a look at it yet, but that will be ongoing as well. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. While you're on, I think it's a convenient moment to bring in Mandy and talk about Longham Lakes, the footpath obstruction impact report. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Floor's yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Vanessa. I guess the interesting is, it's interesting, isn't it, when something doesn't really become that obvious until it lands on you, or until it comes knocking on your door. And of course, for me, as much as I was kind of aware of the definitive map process and all of that from doing these forums before, the real scale of it really hasn't hit home until it's actually become a local issue. And I'm happy for it's up to you. If people are interested, I'm happy to share screen with the map and kind of give people a feel for the issue, which I can do, of course. Would you like me to do that, Phil? Just talk about the subject in general.
You can put the map up. I've actually looked at it overnight, but if you've got it there handy.
Yeah.
Actually, we've got maps here.
That's just a map that so I've got some comments as well for you, Mandy, but carry on.
Okay, cool. Shall I share my screen? Is that all right?
Please do, yeah.
So hopefully everyone can see this all right. Okay, so can everyone see that okay?
Perfectly, thank you. Good map.
Okay, super. So basically what we're referring to is access. The critical thing is access to Longham Lakes. Now, most of you will, I'm sure, know Longham Lakes is not only vastly important to local people, it's really our only green space. Whilst we're lucky to have the Stour Valley Way and all of that to walk the river, it's really a walker's path, if you know what I mean. Local runners, people that just want to go out for an amble and chat to friends, or see wildlife, whatever. Realistically not using these kind of what I'd call proper kind of off-road footpaths. Really, they're accessing the lakes for that's the local recreation, if you like, and there really isn't anything else for people to walk to. But of course, plus the lakes get hundreds of visitors every week, so people are walking, ramblers are going through. It's a really, really popular place to visit. The challenge you have accessing it is this footpath here you can access, which is part of the Stour Valley Way. The challenge is that it's on a side of it's right by Longham Bridge, a very, very dangerous place to cross the road. It's got two stiles, one of which is metal, very, very slippery in the wintertime, and generally, kind of gets quite overgrown. So what people tend to do is either coming down from BCP, the footpath over the bridge is on the eastern side. The Stour walkers coming off the Stour Valley Way are on the eastern side. So they would tend to walk down the pavement here, cross the only refuge across the main A348 is here, and they would walk down and use the track, which you can see there in the light blue, which is now registered as an application. This footpath is here, but it is incredibly narrow. It's got barbed wire fence, very uneven, very overgrown, and actually is not a right of way to the public highway anyway. That is the land that was the King's Arms pub. But now, whilst the owner's left a small gap at the side of his car park, he's not happy for very many people to be using it. And it's not obvious that it's there. So if you don't know the area, you'll tend to walk on past and go down the track. So essentially, and then right round, the only other way to access Longham Lakes is right round off of Ham Lane, which is maybe a mile and a half walk round to come down the bridle way of Highmead Lane and cross the Stile there into the lakes. And just give you an idea, I've got a aerial picture here, which is from Dorset Explorer, which shows the track there before the lakes were even there. This is the track here, and this is Ham Preston School over here. So historically, people would talk about walking their children down here around the old footpath and onto Ham Preston School, and indeed some still do it. So essentially, that's the track that we're talking about. So I'll come out of that. So does that give everyone a good idea of where we're at? And I think it's really interesting that this track, which is, I don't know, it can't be more than kind of maybe 20 meters long, is such a critical part of the community. And these kind of Johnny-come-latelys who don't even live around here, they just rent a lockup, which is situated down that track, have just decided that they want to use it as a parking area. So they've put up a gate. We confronted them when they were doing that, and asked them to leave a gap at the side. They were like, well, who are you? Go away. They were really, really not helpful, to say the very least. The land isn't owned. So that's the situation. I think for me, is the horror of realising that the system in this country currently means that these people can affect the local community, and visitors to what is a massively important local recreation site can completely, essentially block access in a couple of hours, and it's going to take us years to undo that damage. And I think for me, that's the real crux here, is that by the time potentially that situation gets resolved, assuming that it's ultimately claimed as a right of way, many people will be dead. There's people in their 80s that live along this road that sort of potter down there and sit on the bench and meet with their friends, etc. Many people may have moved on. It just seems ridiculous scenario, really. And I think, whilst to many of you who've been, kind of around this subject for longer than me, may have sort of resigned yourself to it, I think, it's something that I'm just horrified by, really. Sorry, Phil, I don't know what else to say.
I think we take your frustration on board very clearly. What would your comments be, Vanessa?
Well, I completely agree with Mandy. I mean, the process itself that we have to go through is, I think, ultimately necessarily long-winded in order to give everybody a fair chance to actually get the right evidence out there so that we can make the decision. It probably doesn't need to be quite as long-winded as it actually is, but I do appreciate that process is necessary to give everyone a fair chance to be involved. However, the backlogs that everyone who makes these applications has to wait through is beyond all sense. And every time we receive an application that's based on user evidence like Mandy's, it's very disheartening for us to have to explain to people what the situation is. I mean, Mandy's been great, she's been very understanding, but it's still not acceptable that people have to wait that long for things to be resolved, because people, local people and local communities, it's very important, and it can be years, and that can really affect their lives. And obviously this latest application isn't going to go right to the bottom of the queue. but it does still mean that it's likely to be several years before we're even in a position to look at it, because we just don't have the resources. And we have other cases that have come in that are based on user evidence that are still waiting in the queue. And we do our best, but ultimately, we do very much appreciate the impact that this can have on people and their lives. And it's, all I can say is we're doing the best we can, but we do appreciate that it really ultimately is not satisfactory. Yeah. It's not a satisfactory service that we're able to provide.
Are we able to look at the statement of priorities? You obviously have a statement of priorities where you can sort of bring things higher up the list. This obviously has a very strong community benefit. Is there a way of looking?
Well, it will, as I said, it won't go to the bottom of the list, and it won't even go to the bottom of the list that isn't the BHS project related pile. It will move up our list, but it's still going to be somewhere like 16th or 17th in the queue of the 28 cases we have outstanding, even sort of applying the new statement of priorities. So whilst it's in a better position than it might have been, sort of a few years ago if it had come in, we still can't deal with it any time soon. And that's just very disappointing for everyone.
Yeah. And I think, for me, the criticism most definitely not aimed at Vanessa's team or any of the process that they have to do. I think it's more the fact that this legislation and this process is even existing and creating this issue. And whilst I obviously have a interest in this particular scenario, I'm also thinking of this in the wider context of how many other poor communities around the country are having the same challenges. I looked at Hampshire's stats. They've got well over 200 cases outstanding. This is obviously a problem that's replicated around the country, and I just want it doesn't feel right that as a local access forum we're not at least applying some sort of pressure. For example, have we written to our MPs, our MPs of Dorset as a group and highlighting how much this is impacting and really getting it up that kind of onto their agenda and onto their radar? Because I had a very brief conversation with Chris Chope, who is Christchurch, which covers Longham, and he had no idea about your backlogs, Vanessa. Whether that's true, and I don't, but that's what he said. He knew it was a problem, but he didn't know it was as big a problem as it was. So I just wonder, Phil, as a forum, if we could take what kind of action we could possibly take. But I know, sorry, Graham, I know you wanted to say something about that particular track, so I'll let you speak on that. But then maybe if there is anything we can debate as a group that could be done to apply some sort of pressure, do we link in with other LAFs across the country? Are they having the same conversations we're having today? I don't know.
I can assure you they are.
I'm sure they are. I just wonder whether we, doing anything to combine our might, if you like, in that respect.
You want to make a comment?
It's not my patch. It's in the eastern area team's patch. But I spoke to them yesterday after we forwarded this report. Sophie is aware of the vegetation issues and gets to them as soon as she can do, along with all the other ones. The two stiles, she's going to go and have a word with the landowner and see if we can get those swapped to gates to make access easier. There probably needs to be another DMMO to make the footpath through to the highway at the King's Arms actually get to the roadside, I'm assuming, because it isn't showing up on
It doesn't, no.
At the moment.
No, that's actually correct. Mandy and I have had many conversations about this. And
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's correct as it is. So there was some talk of dedication, which, fingers crossed may happen at some point, but I'm not sure. We'll just have to wait and see. But there's nothing we can do at the moment from that point of view.
Okay, alrighty. And then there is another track 50 metres north of the track in question that's been obstructed, which goes straight down to the car park.
Yeah.
My question is that not another suitable access? So it's not just footpaths or this track only, is it?
No, the main entrance to the lakes is the one that I think that's the one you're referring to.
Yeah, it kind of goes diagonally from the main road. Yeah.
There's a main access into the lakes, which is one that when you look back, you want to strangle whoever was on planning that approved it in the first place. Where they put the actual entrance to the lakes is where it comes out onto the main road. You've got a public it's not a public right of way, it's permissive land.
There is a footway next to the
footway, but it comes out on Ringwood Road, which sees 10,000 vehicle movements a day, where there is no drop curb for a start, so there's no very difficult to access from that respect, but also it's on a bend in the road that you would seriously need to take your life in your hands to run across. Literally run across, because you can't see round the bend, and anybody who's not that quick on their feet would never attempt it, believe me. And I've even taken, because another thing we've always asked for is some sort of pedestrian crossing there, some sort of aided crossing, and I've taken councillors there and asked them if they fancy daring their luck crossing, and nobody has yet. So, and then further down, Graham, you've got Green Lane, which is the bridle way. That is very, very long and has no access to the lakes until you get right round to the Highmead Lane track. Because because they claimed that poachers were using that, they took all the access points to the lakes away.
Sorry, Philip. So Sophie will certainly make what improvements she can, and approach the people who manage the lakes again, just about general maintenance and keeping mud away, vegetation kept well back to make the access as good as it has.
Yeah, I mean, for now, everybody has to use that King's Arms route, even, so, keeping that path as clear as possible would be helpful. But like I say, it's just not accessible to most. In the winter time, you really need wellies to go down there, or really stout walking. So if you're a runner, which people do, I'd see them every evening running past my house. Runners would run on down into the lakes, run around the lakes, using that footpath in the wintertime wouldn't be an option for them.
Fair enough. We'll certainly see what we can do in terms of improvements.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But yeah, just going back to how, what if there is anything that we can do as a forum to get this either onto the political agenda, make our feelings known, that kind of thing.
I hear what you say. The one question I got for Vanessa, yes, we have a statement of priorities, and from the statement that we've got with the list of the priorities, are you happy and comfortable where it sits? I know there will always be other cases that are more important, but are you feeling that the statement is fit for purpose, shall we say, or do we need to look at that statement of priorities to see if we can weigh it more favourably where we have an application such as this? Or do you feel comfortable that you have a number of cases higher up the pipeline that are of equal or more merit to be dealt with first?
Basically, yes. I mean, we only revised the statement of priorities last year, and top of the list is where an application is supported predominantly by user evidence, which may be adversely affected by lengthy delays, which Mandy's already highlighted. But unfortunately, there are several long-standing cases in the queue that are equally as important to the people of those communities. So we've moved it up the list as far as we can. It's, as I said, it's definitely not going on at the bottom, but it is still likely to be a few years before we can actually get to it. But yeah, I'm satisfied with the statement of priorities and where this application will sit within that as far as it goes. Obviously, with every application that comes in, we'd really like to start it the next day. It's just not possible with the resources that we have.
Yeah, where can we as a forum help you, Vanessa? Without putting words too much into your mouth. I know Paul's keen to get a word in here.
Well, I'm just thinking one option would be for us to write to the portfolio holder concerned, emphasising the way in which this resourcing issue is impacting the community. And you could refer back to our letter that we sent, must be 2 or 3 years ago now, in which we raised this issue and asked for an assurance that Vanessa's team will be provided with the resources needed to process these applications within realistic timescales. So, you know, this case encapsulates that problem.
Well, yeah, Chairman, I would support Paul in that, because
so would I.
We've got a new portfolio holder, we've got a new party in control here, so I would favour that. And I would just add, if I may, about the national situation, and could we do anything, join together with other LAFs and make representations about that? But what Vanessa said in her opening remarks about the Deregulation Act, in fact, the Deregulation Act, which has the potential to have some speeding up effect to the DMMO process, that act was passed in 2015. DEFRA has given it such low priority that we're now in 2024 and those provisions still haven't been activated, and that's what Vanessa was talking about. So all the national organisations, the Ramblers, the BHS and so on, have lobbied and lobbied for, for this to be given a higher priority. So it sounds a bit defeatist, but I'm not sure that our LAP on its own is going to make any impact where those other organisations aren't having any impact. I share your
concerns.
But we are, and I was going to mention this in AOMB, that there was a promise early on in the election campaign that the new government would produce an access white paper where we might be able to make some impact and make comments that will speak this, but nothing is going to happen quickly. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit defeatist about this, but I've been involved in it for a very long time. So yeah, I would support Paul in. We can just take some action locally, at least, to just get the interest of the portfolio holder and explain the situation.
Yes, I mean, the portfolio holder is Shane Bartlett, who we know well and has been on the rights of way sort of regulatory committees throughout for a good number of years, and he's very knowledgeable about what we do as a team, and also he does fully understand the situation and has been very supportive in the past. So I think raising it with the new cohort of politicians would at least be helpful, because even if they can't do anything about it, it's on their radar, and then if any opportunities come up, they're at least aware of our situation and they can't turn around and say, oh, well, I wish you'd said, because I'd have done this, that and the other. But so I think just flagging it up would be beneficial.
And also, I think it wouldn't do us any harm as the LAF to introduce ourselves to him anyway. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to write a letter or invite him to the next meeting?
Well, write a letter and, yeah.
Okay.
I will try and dig out the letter that we sent about 3 years ago.
That would be helpful.
We never actually got a formal reply.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Right, we're all agreed on that. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's a really good paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I think that's rounded off your presentation, hasn't it, Vanessa?
Yes, I don't have anything to add unless there are any more questions. But again, as always, thank you very much for your time and your support. It's much appreciated.
Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Moving on to item 8. If we could briefly, if there is any member feedback, associated groups and meetings.
Yeah, since we last met as the DLAF, I have been to a meeting of the Dorset National Landscape Management Board where I represent the LAF. A huge number of really good projects going on within the National Landscape, which is the new name for the AONB. Some of them are access related, in particular the Stepping into Nature projects, which is a big umbrella of projects. That's temporarily on hold because I think they've come to the end of their current funding round. But there's lots of good stuff about what the National Landscape is doing in terms of access, education visits to farms, improvements to access around Bridport and West Bay. So I think the best thing is that I will send everybody a link to their website so you can read about those projects. I'll end it there.
Thank you, Janet.
Local Nature Partnership. The last meeting was quite short and procedural, and so nothing particularly of relevance, except that the local nature recovery scheme is progressing. And within that, there are all these new farm cluster projects with good funding and opportunities for access. The local recovery scheme, landscape scale ones. So what we've done on another area is to write if you like, just a brief introduction to a subject that can go to all of those projects. They could really do with an access one that just sort of says opportunities for access, because these projects are all organically growing from communities. And so whilst they have some professional support, they're all running around reinventing the wheel, to be honest. So I don't know whether Ramblers have done anything like that, whether we do it at a Rambler BHS level or whether we do it at a LAF level, just as a sort of, have you considered access? This is the money you could be paid. This is where you go to type note to all these new projects. And look, I think there's about 10 in Dorset, so might be worth doing.
Yeah. Do it as the LAF.
Should we draft something like that?
Yeah, because if you do it as the LAF, it brings everybody together.
Yeah.
And covers all kinds of access, doesn't it?
I also, with my VHS hat on, was talking to the National Trust, and I can't recall whether I discussed it here before, because they've done some very big schemes on other estates to put permissive routes in. And there is an open door, I think, with Purbeck, but they liaise always with the Purbeck Active Transport Group. And we don't seem to have any link with them. Am I wrong about that, though? Because she said the first thing is you should go and sit on that, and then you can link in. So I said I'd do that. Yeah. And I'm happy then. And I think it'd be an opportunity for Ramblers to join in, because they're just looking at sustainable tourism and transport across Purbeck. So national nature, isn't it? Follow that up with Jan.
Right. Moving on to item 9. I think that gets ratified next time.
I'm really sorry. We weren't able to circulate Nikki's response to the BCP local plan in time for today, so we'll have to ratify that next time. But very many thanks to Nikki for doing that. And also to note in this context that I had an email from BCP to say that the local plan at the stage it's reached to is now the stage when it's gone to the Secretary of State. So it's the BCP plan is now wending its way to the Secretary of State for examination. So I did send a timetable for that. Yes, following the 6 weeks consultation earlier this year, BCP collated all the responses, so that would have included Nikki's, and submitted this to Secretary of State for Levelling Up Communities and Housing on the 27th of June. 2 independent planning inspectors will now consider these documents.
Darren.
Oh. Whoops.
Oh, it's also up on my side. And meter.
Perhaps the TV's turned off.
Right, we're getting you back.
Hello, yeah, I was just saying that the BCP local plan has now gone to the Secretary of State where it will be examined, and they reckon that'll take 12 months and that they'll be able to adopt it in 2025.
Someone's got a microphone on. There we go. Item
Phil,
10.
Sorry, before you go on from that, sorry, I did have a hand up, sorry.
Okay.
Can I just say something, Phil, on the local plan?
Please.
Please. So I think this was one because of the email issue we were referring to at the beginning. I think I've missed all of the to and fro's on this. But I'd had, which was a bit of a shame because I'd had kind of in my mind that when local plans come up, the issue of SANGs. And I haven't seen what our response is for the last one, so maybe someone's already picked this up. But SANGs are obviously something that are very much start from the local plan process, and I'm very conscious that Dorset's will come up soon. So I just wanted to mention this. So perhaps if I'm not around, somebody remembers this one. The SANGs that we have locally, I've noticed issues with, which I think should be noted in the local plans, that SANGs, any SANGs created should have XYZ. And a big one is access from the highway. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Holmwood Park development, which is just as you go up into Ferndown from the mini roundabouts at Longham. There's a big development that went in a few years ago called Holmwood Park. And they put, as part of that development, the SANG went in, which is all very nice and is looked after by our lovely Dorset Council Rangers. But interestingly enough, the SANG has a car park off of Christchurch Road, all well and good, but no pedestrian access has been built in. So if you want to walk into the SANG, you've literally got to cross the road unaided, but there's no drop curbs or footpaths. So you've literally got to walk in the car park entrance where the cars are, if that makes sense. And it's that kind of thing that I just wonder whether local plans should be picking up the fact that SANG should allow, recreational access from the highway, some kind of wording that ensures that any new SANGs created encompass that, that kind of infrastructure, really, because it's actually quite upsetting to a lot of the residents on Christchurch Road that they feel unsafe walking in there because you've got cars shooting off of the highway in the same road space. So I don't know how anyone feels about that sort of input into local plans, but it was just something that I thought I'd mention. And the other one that I still would like to do a little bit of research into, because I don't really understand it. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the SANG at Camford Park, which is, of course, the big one off of Magna Road, down the hill, which, as I understand it, and I find it really strange, is actually managed privately. So there is no way for the public to have any sort of say of what goes on there. There's no public consultation process, there's nothing. And I notice it doesn't actually affect me directly because I don't use it. But I notice on lots of the social media groups around Ferndown, people complaining because the company that manage it have put in all these barriers and things, which mean that disabled people with disabled vehicles can't get in there anymore. Disabled people are struggling to get onto the site. And when I ask the question, they don't even bother responding to me. And because they're not a public funded organisation like the council maybe, there doesn't seem to be any level of public scrutiny as to what they do down there, which seems absolutely crazy. And I don't know, just a comment, really.
We're going to ask the people that look after SANGs from our side to come along to the next meeting. Sophie Isaacs, who kind of looks after the practical side of it, and Jade North, who should have returned from maternity leave by that point, who kind of deals with the planning side of it.
Okay.
Going to get them to come along to the meeting.
Yeah, it would be good to get some sort of input in that planning process.
Yeah. In terms of management associations, nightmare.
I gather that because everybody has. There's a huge number of people locally that refuse to go to that camp for SANG because they feel that it's run by dictatorship.
Yeah, and it'll basically be paid into by the people that live within that one development. So it's almost their private fiefdom.
Okay.
Crazy.
Meeting. Okay. Number 10. Applications.
Sorry,
This is me again.
Can I just say something? I'm really pleased. Thank you because it was on the minutes at 9.1 for somebody to come next time. So I'm really pleased there is people coming to talk to us about SANGs because I think there's loads of issues and but there is guidance. Natural England does produce a guidance to SANGs, which if anybody's interested in having a look before the next meeting, there is some guidance to local authorities, and it was updated at some point. So before the next meeting.
Nikki, can you send a link? Presumably it's online somewhere and you can send a link.
I'll send a link. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I think Russ has got his hand up, boss.
Russ.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Sorry, just to pick up the point on the saying on off Christchurch Road. There's a drop curb directly opposite the car park entrance in front of the houses there, but I do take the point it goes straight through into the car park. That there was liaison at some point during this. I remember when this one went in, but of course, what they were looking at with this one, I believe, was the main bulk of the people coming in were actually coming in from the north. So the main walking in entrance was coming in from the conurbation to the north, not the south, which is why the car park's on the south, and then the main walking entrance in off of. I'm trying to think what the road's called. Paddock Way is one of the entrances. Of course, we've got Poor Common, which is next to it as well, which has got footpaths and other entrances to it. So it's a really interesting point to take on board that we might be able to do something, maybe talk to our highways colleagues about the access off of Christchurch Road.
Yeah, we have asked them whether they really take that one. But it's that interesting fact, isn't it, that opposite there, because there's no houses on that side of the road, there's no footway. So anyone who does want to come from the south, and why wouldn't the people who live opposite it use it?
So no, but there's a footway on the opposite side of the road to the SANG, isn't there?
Yeah, but there's no footway
length
on the SANG itself, which interestingly enough is quite similar to the same problem we were talking about earlier with Logham Lakes. These things get built on sides of the road where there's no current footway, then you've got absolutely no choice but to cross the road. And even once you do, there's no footway for you to then step onto to keep out of the way of cars whizzing in and out of there.
I'd like to pick this one up with Sophie and Jade when I can, because we've got footpath E4223, which runs to Poor Common from Christchurch Road. And to me, from what I can see, I've never actually walked it myself, but it looks to be quite narrow
It is.
quite impacted by, it looks like a substation or something.
Yeah.
So there might be a potential, we may have to put in for planning or something else to make another entrance in off of the highway, but we could actually, if we took something in on the south east corner and then brought it into the Sang from there, it's not ideal, but it is better access through, and we might be able to, it's on a straighter bit of road, so that might go some way to bringing people in from the south, but also, you know, allowing people to go from north to south as well. I mean, people are going to go to Longham. They're going to head down that way, aren't they?
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
we want to bring people from the north to the south as well.
Well, this is interesting, actually, Ross, because I'm sorry, I know it's been a bit selfish in the way I was talking there, because I'm talking about the sort of Longham end. But you're absolutely right. People from Holmwood Park come down through the Sang to try and get to Longham Lakes. So, you know, they are coming north to south.
I think there's certainly an access improvement, getting people moving north to south, that we could work on there. So we'll have a chat with Soph and Jade and see what we can do. As you know, we are the landowner for that bit and we have control of the Sang, so we'll see what we can do. And it might be we have to put in for some funding or some other permissions or planning permission, all these other bits and pieces which are not insurmountable. But you know, you need the idea to start with, don't you? So that you can take it forward.
I appreciate you.
So thanks for bringing that to our
No,
attention.
that's fine.
Thank you. Right, item 10, the planning applications validation checklist.
Thank you, Chairman. This is me again, and it relates back to what Graham was saying earlier about he's preparing guidance for developers. I've circulated a paper on this, so I won't go through it all again because we've already really run out of time. My suggestion is that we write to the planning department here at Dorset Council and ask if they will amend the validation checklist for planning applications and move the requirements to depict public rights of way crossing or adjoining the site from the voluntary list to the required list of things to be shown on plans. Because there's a whole list of things that they only need to include if they influence or will be affected by the proposed development, which is a really subjective thing for the developer or developer's architect or advisor or whatever. It's a really subjective thing for them to decide. We just all the things that Mandy's just talked about, it seems as if, you know, decisions have been made that haven't taken into account the influence on public rights of way or so on of a proposed development. So it's just a really simple request, which they will probably say no and give valid reasons for why it shouldn't be in the compulsory list. But I think it's worth asking the question, could it be moved to the compulsory list of things they must show? And the example I gave is the reason behind that. So with you, if everybody is agreed, I will draft something just to make the point, nothing else. And it would be complementary to the work that Graham's doing already.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry.
Thank you. Item 11.
Sorry, Phil, can I just, before you go off of planning, sorry, put my hand up on planning there. Okay. Sorry, I know I'm saying lots today, aren't I? So just a point on planning, and I don't know if this ties in, Janet. I don't know, but I don't know if anyone's aware of this. But another thing that I wonder about the planning application process is its ability to actually have any influence on rights of way whatsoever. And I'll give you an example. The King's Arms, which we talked about a little bit before, was always a public right of way because it was a pub car park. So people would walk across it and join the actual definitive public right of way at the rear. When they put in their planning application for a change of use and fencing off the site and all the rest of it, the planning application included a public creation of a public right of way. it had it on the plans, it had it drawn out. It was even the planning officer's note said that one of the things that was going to happen was the dedication of a public right of way. So all of that gets put in the planning application. The planning application gets approved, but there is no way of enforcing that developer or landowner to then actually put that right of way into, to actually see that process through to the end.
By the planning enforcement department.
They can't put it as a planning condition, though, Graham. That's the problem.
Why not? But if it was in the planning permission, that seems ludicrous.
I know that's because they can't. If even the only condition is that the plans must be carried out in accordance, or the development must be carried out in accordance with the plans. So I say, well, the plan had a right of way on it, so surely that's in accordance with the plan. No. We can't. If that landowner has to put a dedication through the DMMO process, and we have no control over whether they do that or not. And that was a bit of an eye opener to me.
Place to do a section 26.
It's not a DMMO reliant in planning.
But that's what they say, Janet. That's what they say. They've even put it on there. They put it on the case officer's notes. But when I said, why is it not a condition? They cannot make it a condition. They're relying on goodwill.
Maybe because, as Janet said before, it's a voluntary part of the application. I had the same kind of thing with a caravan park I'm dealing with currently. I put in the application that the path needed to be diverted under the Town and Country Planning Act, which would have sorted a few problems out. And lo and behold, it's in the planning officer's report, clearly. Yeah. And caravan sales place is now on top of the rights of way. This is serving two things. One, it's inconveniencing the public. Two, it's creating work for me. And three, it's costing the landowner more money now, because instead of doing the Town and Country Planning Act, which is easy to achieve and less money, it's now going to cost him 3.5 plus and Vanessa's waiting time to move it properly, which he should have done in the first place.
Which is why what Graham is writing here is so important.
Yeah, we'll get together again.
We look at that. We have a duty to assert and protect. So we need something to assert and protect, don't we? Okay. We'll move on to item 11, which is any other business. Now, I think we've taken a number of things on the way through. Have we anything there?
Yeah. The one thing was I received from BCP a consultation on their travel plan monitoring fees. And I had to look at it and I circulated to everyone, and I just could not see anything useful that the LAF could say about that. So unless anyone thinks otherwise, shout now or we move on. Right. No one shouted. And the other thing was that Chris submitted a question before the meeting, which we haven't taken anywhere else. So this will be the very last item of the day, I think, unless anyone's got any other A, O and B. Chris's query was, there are suggestions in the media that the government intends to induce a right to roam in England as they have in Scotland. If so, how will that affect our rights of way, their maintenance, improvement and legal processes? To which I can provide an answer, if you like.
Please do, Janet.
The Labour Party's manifesto didn't say anything at all about introducing a right to roam in England. All it did have a tiny little mention of access, which was that they would create 9 new national river walks, 1 in each region of England, and establish 3 new national forests in England, and will expand nature-rich habitats, blah, blah. So families can explore wildlife and thrive, wildlife can thrive, including on public land. And to that, I'll add something that I've already said once already, which is that early on in the election campaign, the chap who is now the Secretary of State, DEFRA, said that the government would introduce a white paper on access to nature, which is precursor to legislation. So we need to wait and see what's in that. But Ramblers certainly is not pressing for a right to roam in England because there are just too many barriers to it, and it would impact on the rights of way network and how that's maintained if it happened. You have to remember in Scotland, even though they have got a general right of access, they're still developing a network of core paths. So you need the paths if you're going to get the people out into the countryside. I'll shut up now.
No, thank you for your input. Right. Date your next meeting. That's there. We're looking at November, I believe. Did we schedule one in? I have got the 28th of November in the diary. 10 o'clock, County Hall.
24, did you say?
28th.
No, I've got nothing. I've got another meeting.
That is what I'm going to do over here.
Oh, wow.
Right, 28th it is. Okay, well, thank you very much for a very good meeting this morning. A lot of positives coming out of there. So we'll see you in November. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Long may it rain.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye now.